My boss fired me, but ended up getting fired herself instead. I'll try to keep this short. Sorry for any typos, I'm typing this on my phone. This happened about 15 years ago at my first job. I was 16 years old, in high school and working 60+ hours per week at a restaurant. I started out as part-time, but was the only person willing to close the restaurant, so I worked 7 nights a week, 9-ish hours per night while still in high school. The way the management team was made up was 1 general manager and 3 assistant managers. All of the management, and even other staff, like me, and I never had any issues at all. There was 1 assistant manager who had it out for me for some reason. We will call her Carol. One Saturday night, there was a rodeo going on in town, so I knew that we would get a rush around 10 as we were the only place open that late in town. I told management the day before, as it takes many hours for the roast beef to cook and they usually cook them overnight. Carol was supposed to cook extra roast beef, but failed to do so. Saturday night comes and we get a huge rush around 10:30, 30 minutes before closing. There were 3 of us there, the cook, the manager and me. They are both making the food while I'm running the drive-through, front counter, and bagging the food myself. We ended up running out of roast beef. Instead of no longer taking orders, Carol decides she's going to cook the roast beef in the microwave, and she says this loud enough for customers to hear. Now I've got people asking for refunds. And the manager is the only one that can issue refunds. After about the 5th time of me asking her to give someone a refund, she yells at me in front of about 50 customers and tells me that if I can't do my job without her help then I could just leave and not come back. Here's where the petty comes in. The cook and I had a very good friendship. She was a 50-something-year-old woman, and I was a 16-year-old boy, but we got along great. I ended up talking her into quitting. But we still took care of the customers before leaving the manager there by herself to close the store. I called the GM to let her know what happened and she asked me and the cook to stay and wait for her to get there. When the GM gets there and is asking us about what happened, I looked at her and said, "Why don't you call your son and ask him? He was in the lobby the whole time." Carol's face went white. The GM talks to her son, comes back and sends Carol home and asked me and the cook to stay and close. The next day, I learned that Carol had been fired and had requested that someone bring her personal items to her as she didn't want to come to the store. The cook and I graciously volunteered to take her things to her. She wouldn't even answer her door. We just left her things on her porch and went about our business. I have seen Carol several times since this and she still won't speak to me.